This guy was a bartender too, so in fact, he's probably the same Law and Order, so he's plating glasses at the bar. Yeah, I've seen her before. She used to come here every Thursday.
Yeah, that rings a bell or two. That shakes a tambourine.
Although, her friends never recalled her surfing, and local surfers don't recall ever seeing her surfing. Perhaps one of the most suspicious details is the fact that Michelle's purse was found about 2.5 miles away from her body, in the sand on the base of the seawall. The purse contained Michelle's keys, driver's license, makeup, pay stub, and a fanny pack containing $27 in cash. What's odd is the purse was discovered on a heavily used stretch of beach, meaning it's unlikely that her purse could sit there for 24 hours without any of the money or the purse itself being stolen. This has led some to believe that somebody hurt Michelle, left her to die in the ocean, and then planted the purse to make it look like an accident. Or maybe she was drowned. As mentioned before, Michelle would have had to take a big gulping breath to ingest the sand found in her lungs. Experts mention this only could have happened at the bottom of the ocean, but if someone were to have drowned her in the shallow water of the sandy shoreline, that could perhaps explain the sand. Either way, there are only two suspects, both unofficial. The first suspect is Edwin Decker, a friend who worked as a bartender next to Michelle's old job at Rupper's Coffee Shop. Decker, if you recall, was the one who claimed Michelle told him, quote, she'd like to surf naked, end quote. A fact that would conveniently explain why she was found that way. Decker also claims the night before Michelle's death, he and her had drinks and had flirted for weeks beforehand. He also claims they kissed in his apartment after getting drinks, and then Michelle left his apartment at 5 a.m. in a cab. Though, Decker also mentions there was a friend sleeping nearby them in his apartment that night. Here's what Decker had to say about Michelle. There was a total intellectual connection. I thought there was an emotional connection too. At least on my part there was. And we also had a physical connection. I was so bummed when a couple of days went by and she hadn't called. I was about to give up on the idea. And later when he found out that Michelle had died in a shark attack, he wrote and eventually published this poem. Quote. Wait till you hear the poem.
Oh, wait, he's accusing her of oh, she's a real hippie.
Quote. The report said there was a tattoo, a butterfly on her shoulder, which I remembered that night on my couch when I, like the shark, chewed on her lips and took off her shirt.
And what the fuck? No, shame on him.
It's not even a good poem, it's just weird.
No, it's very strange.
That sounds like something a drunk man would say as he's laying on the sidewalk just babbling.
I don't like that one bit.
And like the shark chewed on her lips and took off her shirt?
No, the shark was not doing that, sir. The shark is 10 times less creepier than you.
Creepiness aside, Decker actually teamed up with an investigator around 2008 and wrote to the San Diego Medical Examiner asking them to reevaluate Michelle's case, which obviously wouldn't be the first thing on the to-do list of a person who murdered the victim.
Gotta be honest, that's the first thing I'd do.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of the guilt? Is that what you're saying?
No, because they'd be like, well, couldn't possibly be him.
No, that's...
Yeah,
I think that's...
like, you better find this killer.
That's a movie plot thing, that's not...
Yeah, I bet it's happened.
The second suspect was an unknown stalker who had stalked Michelle at her previous job at Rupper's Coffee Shop. She reportedly left that job to work a different job at Cabrillo Stationery and Office Supply because she believed the unknown man wouldn't stalk her. Michelle had mentioned that she didn't know this man's name, but that he rode a motorcycle. Denise Knox, Michelle's former boss at the office supply store, recalled a day at the store after Michelle's death when a man came in with a copy of Michelle's autopsy report to make additional copies. In 2014, Knox told the San Diego Reader, quote, the weird guy who wanted all those copies of her autopsy, he rode a motorcycle too. End quote. So after hearing the theories, what do you think happened? Was this actually a shark attack after all? Was this a case of accidental drowning? Did Michelle accidentally or intentionally fall to her death? Or is this case more sinister than it seems at surface level? And Michelle was horrifically murdered. The tragic passing of Michelle Von Emster will remain unsolved.
I'm putting it on the bartender. That poem is unforgivable. I feel like I need to just take a bath and hand sanitizer after listening to it.
You deserve to be in jail just from that poem alone.
Yeah, poetry jail.
The DraftKings Casino app is the place for jackpots. I like my wins exercised. New players play five.
We're sleeping tonight. This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we explore one of the most haunted places in the world as part of our ongoing investigation to answer the question, are ghosts real? Right now we are sitting in the Queen Salon of undoubtedly the creepiest boat in the world. Allow me to introduce you to the Queen Mary.
A bit rude to call it the creepiest boat in the world.
I mean, that's not an unfair statement, would you say, right?
It's a marvel. It's a marvel.
Apparently, this boat is 2 times the size of the Titanic.
2 times?
2 times.
Oh, Titanic's tiny. That's not true.
It's true. All you need to know is I was here about 10 years ago, and I said I'd never come back, and, well, here I am.
You're not a man of your word.
You know, I will say this is a beautiful sunset, though. If there's one thing I can take solace in today,
It's that nice sunset. Enjoy it, Ryan. It's the last one you're ever going to see.
well, I'm back. That is that.
Do you feel like it remembers you?
I certainly hope not after what I did last time I was here.
What did you do?
You'll find out.
You mean that you think there's something about Mary?
Indeed, yeah, that's
She
exactly.
might be a little bit enchanted.
Yeah, I think so. You know, when things are so pristine and beautiful like this, but vacant, there is something very unsettling to it. I don't know what it is.
What do you find unsettling about this?
Lots of things. But that being said, let's get into the history of this boat. Named after Britain's actual Queen Mary, the Queen Mary was completed in the 1930s and embarked on its inaugural voyage on May 27, 1936 from Southampton, England. The boat served as the new benchmark for luxury, containing 2 cocktail bars, 2 swimming pools, 5 dining areas and lounges, a grand ballroom, and much more. However, all that luxury will soon go to waste during World War II, when the ship was repurposed as a transportation vessel for troops and prisoners of war, and was appropriately painted gray. In fact, the ship was so much faster than enemy U-boats that it earned the nickname the Grey Ghost.
Did they paint it gray specifically for the war?
You think the Grey Ghost is a pretty cool nickname?
It is pretty badass.
Captain the Grey Ghost. Tell that story to Bard.
Oh, my ship, well, she's called the Grey Ghost.
The ship was estimated to have carried over 800,000 servicemen throughout the war. In 1947, the ship returned to the Queen Mary status, and in 1965, it was sold to the city of Long Beach in California, where it is now docked permanently. Now that we've established the boat's history, let's take a second to revisit my own personal history with this ship.
Oh, God.
I've told Shane this story before, but about 10 years ago when I was, was it 10 years ago?
This is riveting.
When I was 17 years old, I visited the ship with a couple friends. I was really interested in the paranormal, but didn't believe it was a real thing. Never thought I'd be back in this room. And this was my ghost father. After taunting the ghosts to show themselves and coming up empty again, I returned disappointed to my hotel room on the boat. Cabin B4. Oh boy. This hasn't changed one bit. That's exactly the same. Which bed were you on? I was sleeping right here.
On this one.
I was sleeping on the left side towards the wall.
We were hanging out. This looks like a Best Western.
That night when I slept, I was repeatedly poked in the face. But I was too scared to open my eyes. And when I finally did to confront the person I was sleeping next to, my friend Elvin, I discovered to my horror that he was actually fast asleep and snoring. I thought maybe,
Ain't that like Elvin?
yeah, maybe nothing, maybe it was nothing, so I tried to push through it. I eventually did fall asleep. The next morning I went to the bathroom. My friend Casey saw the sink turn on, so we set up a camera to try and catch that. So when we set up the camera, we actually caught, if you look at the footage, at the left corner, there's a bag with toothpaste on top of it.
You'll never forget that plastic Ziploc back here. I'm getting chills seeing the actual toothbrush.
Let me see, look, you can see it.
It already happened. Yeah, not voting well considering it didn't even
You were focusing on the wrong side of the screen.
Yeah, there's definitely a
Considering you were focusing on the wrong
There's definitely a force at play there, though.
And what is that? Gravity. Okay, you gotta admit, that looks weird. No, everyone's
It really doesn't.
you wanted to get.
It happens at the exact same time that you throw your shit on the counter.
There's always something. You got the bag, how do you lose? It's like,
Because there's toothpaste on it.
there's like a jitter.
Watch, bags are stiff.
That's a pretty hurt. I mean, it almost looks like someone's puppeteering you with the screw.
It's a haunted bag.
You can't see that it swung in a little bit.
This toothpaste falls straight down.
It was up and down.
Straight down.
Up and down.
We will have no one.
Up and down. Before that toothpaste hit the floor, I didn't believe in ghosts. I thought this was all BS. But what I saw in that bathroom changed me into the man that you see today. A firm believer in ghosts and the paranormal. I've never doubted it again, and I swore I would never return to this ship, and yet here I sit like a freaking idiot. So
I've told you numerous times that I would love to see something like that. If I just get one experience like that with definitive proof, maybe tonight's the night, I'm feeling lucky.
that being said, let's explore some of the paranormally active areas of the ship when I return to the Queen Mary. There are quite a few documented deaths that occurred on the Queen Mary, and numerous more reported ones, so let's revisit it sometime. In 1936, Sir Edgar Britton, the first captain of the Queen Mary, died of a stroke in his cabin. In 1949, Senior Second Officer William Stark accidentally drank laundry detergent stored in the gin bottle, thereby poisoning himself to death.
Storing that in a gin bottle, though.
Apparently, the captain at the time had a gin bottle in his room, and he said, "You know, you've been doing a good job today. Go to my room, pour yourself a drink." He failed to mention there was acid, or I've also heard it was detergent.
Oh, this doesn't taste like this burning my tongue. I better swallow it. You imagine him just a minute after the guy left the room being like,
Oh shit! I didn't drink the other bottle with the X's on it. Oh darn it! By the way, Shane, I have a bottle of whiskey in the room. It goes taste of it. Yeah, good. However, the most unfortunate deaths all occurred at one time. As I had mentioned before, the Queen Mary served as a transportation vessel during World War II. On October 2nd, 1942, the Queen Mary was being escorted from New York to Glasgow by another much smaller vessel called the HMS Curaçao. The Curaçao was zigzagging in front of the Queen Mary to confuse potential U-boats and German bombers. However, the Queen Mary, traveling at 28.5 knots, unexpectedly caught up to the Curaçao and consequently collided with the ship, splitting the HMS Curaçao in half.
boy, how much bigger was it? 20 times bigger?
20 times bigger.
That just fucking cut through that thing like a hot butter patty. Yeah, like a hot butter patty.
That's not what it's called. Some members of the Curaçao were killed instantly on impact, while others were thrown into the freezing water, watching as the men who remained on board sank, trapped within the remains of the vessel. And for those left in the water that didn't die from hypothermia, it is said that the current of the Queen Mary carried them in, chopping them up in the propeller. That's all you gotta say about
Where
that.
is he? Head down, he's aiming for the torches. They're missing.
Boat life.
Due to war protocol, the captain of the Queen Mary, Cyril Illingworth, was not able to stop to rescue the passengers, and they pushed forward, reporting the incident to nearby British destroyers. But by the time the British arrived, about 2 hours later, it was too late. Many had already died from hypothermia, and of the 430 crew members on board the HMS Curaçao, only 99 survived. It is said that you can hear the screams of the Curaçao passengers in the boiler room of the Queen Mary. And some claim that the bow of the ship is a hotspot due to the fact that it's where the Queen Mary made contact with the Curaçao.
Oh, can you give us instead?
Just afraid of anything.
Instead.
Right now we're in the bow of the ship. This is where the ship struck the Curaçao.
We're in her belly.
That's the cargo hold. They used to keep POWs in there. I got a new toy. This is a FLIR thermal camera. So if there's any ghosts here, maybe you want to put their heat signature.
Weapons inside this room. It's hard to believe.
Normally I'm against asking
I'm a real
doing a
rock.
game with ghosts. But I'm truly going to be actually investigating this.
Yeah. Do it. Go on. Go on.
Do you know my history with this boat?
The direct.
First off,
There's weapons.
sorry for what I said last time.
It's all
I
in
called it a
despair.
motherfucker, I called it a coward. And I said, this bullshit is bullshit. Now you're
I
hurt.
don't want to hurt you. I come prepared. When the presence is still
Very angry
king.
about that toothpaste and some shit. And you told me before we got
When
here.
we got company. Stay. Let the waiting room unlock.
Spirit,
Let it stay. You're running on yourself.
Don't be personal, it's a diehard
spirit.
The feed the pigs, we all attack the prince. Was he got the handies of great strides? Get off me, with your very stand. Holding down, putting on ground. If he wants to break his heads.
No, that's it. Bum, 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 bum.
I mean, you could try that. Man, this.
Easy as long as it's strong to bring me home. Long as you're around, and when it's left unknown.
It's just creepy. It's
I had to wait my life. Or going to die.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
Other alleged deaths include 2 women who drowned in the first-class swimming pool. One apparition appears in 1930s clothing and the other in 1960s. There is also reports of a little boy who fell overboard near the pool who now haunts the passageway. A little girl named Jackie also is reported to haunt the swimming pool areas.
I just think it's embarrassing for them to drown in a pool on a boat.
That's true. Also, was there no lifeguard on duty?
You're on a thing that has conquered buoyancy.
They drowned on top of the ocean.
Yeah.
In the ocean.
Yeah.
According to the ship's current captain, during World War II, a cook died in horrific fashion. Apparently, he was shoved into an oven by Australian soldiers and consequently burned to death.
Wait, what happened?
Australian soldiers they picked up, who did not like the food, took the chef and instead of giving him 1 star on Yelp, shoved him into an oven. Maybe that's why they rated Yelp.
Cooks were tired of being murdered.
Many say his screams can still be heard.
Yeah, we heard the last break a couple seconds ago too.
Yeah, did you hear that?
Yeah, we are right next to, down the hall is the galley where the kitchen was. I'm a little unnerved that the clanking did come from the kitchen.
That doesn't sit super well.
Oh, wow, you're actually admitting to something for once. In 1966, an 18-year-old crewman was crushed by door number 13, an automatically closing door during a watertight drill. His ghost is sometimes seen wearing white coverings.
It's very confusing. Looks like it'd be pretty easy to get crushed to death here.
This is just in itself, even if this is not spiritually active, this place is a marvel. There's just numbers. How could anyone possibly know what the hell is going on there?
It's number 13. Is this where it happened?
This is not. Oh, this is where lubrication happened. Lubrication oil pump controllers.
Little semen lubrication.
Jesus Christ. No.
That's fun.
I think this is it right here. This is door number 13. It's everything strange right here. Yep, I don't like it. I'm gonna get out of that. It is crazy that of all the numbers we really got stuck in the 13. Okay, now I'm starting to get scared again. Hello there, if there's anybody here, please show us a sign, make a bang. Be nice. No. Go fucking win now.
It's clearly just some machine turning on.
Well, that's gotta be a snitch, right?
Yeah, probably. Or a ghost.
Right now, I'm talking to the gentleman who got crushed in this door, and you're here still. Please show yourself. I'll see, just light bulbs and shit. I'll see anything, I'll see anything It's just a light. It's just a light. But it looks like someone looking out. Is that not? Holy shit, dude, that's scary.
Staring at the
Holy shit out of me. Other hotspots on the ship include the engine, the safe room, the Arctic port bow storage, the wheelhouse, the propeller box, and finally, the isolation ward, where the sick and those diagnosed with a contagious disease were kept away from the other passengers. And in some cases, the isolation ward served as a makeshift prison. Let's do this.
Mitchell looks scared too.
Oh my god, I wasn't. My fucking heart almost exploded, dude.
Your heart on exploded?
What?
Show yourself. I know you're watching me. Show yourself.
Check that out.
Let's move on to the final stage of the investigation. Spending the night on the ship,
Hello.
we've been given access to the most haunted cabin on the Queen Mary.
Wonder,
Cabin
wonder.
B340.
Each other.
No, gotta sleep in here. This room we're sleeping in.
Yeah. You're gonna lose your mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna lose my mind, of course. Workers that have worked on this ship for decades, in some cases, and they never go in there by themselves. And when I told them that we're sleeping in there, they laughed and told me I was an idiot in my face. Well, so that's fun. Cabin has reports of voices, beds shaking, water well, lights being turned on by itself. In fact, cabin B340 has garnered so many reports of complaints of activity that it was actually shut down and ripped apart about 25 years ago. Since then, nobody's been allowed to sleep inside until tonight, where we will attempt to sleep inside cabin B340 for the first time in nearly 25 years. I don't think we've ever attempted something more idiotic than this.
Holy shit. Are you kidding me? Sniper, if there's anybody in here that wants to talk to us, say something.
What was that you?
If
Standing there.
there's
Reading and smoking.
news for it. Are you fucking kidding me? It's an accident. I didn't do that on purpose. I genuinely it just slipped right out of my cheeks.
If I see anything at all tonight that awakes something in me, then I'll join you and this weird little camp.
And you'll be me.
I'll be you.
Bed shaking. That's not me.
Gotcha, ghost. It's an empty room. What is the ghost even gonna do in there?
I don't know. Poke me in the face like it did when I was 17. I gotta start to psych myself out again.
Just focus on the
I mean, we tried to sleep at the Sally house, and every time I fell asleep, you woke me up.
Yeah, well, I can't make any promises that you're gonna stay awake.
I am going to go to sleep. And if you try to wake me up, I'm just going to ignore you. I'm gonna pour water. You do whatever the hell you want. I'm not gonna acknowledge you.
You know. What was that?
But all of that was to bring me back to you. So tell me, would you fall in love with me again?
first night. Simple,
Had some fun time.
everlasting.
Ironically, Mary, you're beautiful lady. Prodigal son returned today, and
It's real.
didn't come back with whatever the rest of the way. What does she have to say? What is she?
I'm still not prepared to say this place is not haunted because I very much believe it is.
So it remains.
Queen Mary is an 80-year-old ship with plenty of rich yet tragic history. Are there actually ghosts that inhabit the halls and decks of this former ship? Is that Mary
How long it's been
after spending one
in
nearly
my
sleepless night in the ship?
not the same person. Really, has been and I've been hating,
Fellas, there's gonna be a party later if you want to.
No, stop it. Oh, shit, it's over there taking us. Hold on.
Hello,
This
Caleb.
week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we discussed the
I don't
murders
remember
of
that.
Nicole Brown
Hello.
Simpson and Ronald L. Goldman, or as you may know it, the case of O.J. Simpson, who was Nicole's ex-husband, a Hall of Fame running back in the National Football League, and the case's top suspect.
Also, I was a little boy. But you do know him.
Yeah,
I mean, for anyone our age, it's just...
yeah, I actually never even knew he played football. I just knew he was the guy who probably murdered somebody,
Yeah.
and his name was the Juice.
His name was the Juice.
There's a lot to unpack here, so let's just get into it. In the early morning of June 13th, 1994, at 12:10 a.m., the bodies of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald L. Goldman were found outside Nicole's Brentwood townhouse, stabbed to death. So right now we're on our way to Nicole Simpson's house. That's it over there. I feel awful.
I'm not crazy about this.
No. It's
Such a cheery evening here in Brentwood.
yeah.
Good times.
At the time, Nicole and O.J. Simpson were divorced and living in separate residences, both located in Brentwood. The bodies were discovered by two neighbors who were literally led to the crime scene by Nicole's dog, a dog that multiple neighbors would say was incessantly barking around the time of the murders. So like I said, the dog led the neighbors down the street. I'm not sure if it was this way or that way, but the dog led them to the entrance, and they just saw the blood coming out to the sidewalk. This whole place has been renovated, so the entrance right now is in a different place than it was back then.
You know what occurs to me, though, is how close all the apartments were. And how it's like...
And how no one...
For some reason, yeah, I was imagining the strip bigger and things were a little more separated. On top of each other there. I imagine some people would hear something.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. Let's go through the established and highly detailed timeline. On June 12, 1994, at 6:30 p.m., Nicole, her children, and others arrive at dinner at a restaurant called Mezzaluna. At 9:15 p.m., Nicole's sister calls Mezzaluna to say that her mother had left her glasses there. Ronald Goldman goes to pick up the glasses. At 9 to 9:30 p.m., Brian, Cato, Kalis, and O.J. Simpson go to McDonald's for dinner. I can't imagine McDonald's was pleased to hear that. Or they wished he left that out of the testimony.
Was that in the testimony?
I mean, it had to be. It's on the official timeline.
Well, that did get a lot of media coverage,
I guess.
Free advertising, I suppose.
At 9:45 p.m., Cato and O.J. return home from McDonald's. Cato was staying with O.J. in his guest house at the time. At 9:48 to 9:50 p.m., Goldman leaves Mezzaluna with a white envelope containing Nicole's mother's glasses. At 10:15 p.m., Nicole Simpson's neighbor hears a dog bark and cry while he is watching TV. The prosecution would later cite these barks as the barks of Nicole's dog, who was theoretically crying out at the murder of its owner, Nicole. So,
My dog bark.
by dog. In a lot of ways, this dog is the real hero of the story, it seems like.
I don't know if there's a lot of heroes in this one.
Oh, no, but the dog.
If you want to give it to the dog,
I'll give it to the dog. I'd like to have something happy about this story. The dog isn't the regular lassie. the sake of just keeping this less bleak, let's show a picture of a Nikita right now. I think we could all use that.
Please.
Okay.
Hey!
Yeah.
Something jolly.
Yeah, something jolly. At 10:25 p.m., a limousine driver named Ellen Park arrives at OJ's home. OJ was scheduled to leave on a red-eye that night from LA to Chicago at 11:45 p.m. At 10:40 p.m., OJ's guest, Cato, heard 3 loud thumps on the outside wall of the guest house he is staying. From 10:40 to 10:55 p.m., Ellen Park, the limo driver, buzzes OJ's intercom several times, but there's no answer. Just before 11 p.m., the limo driver sees a shadowy figure, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, walking across the driveway towards the house. At about 11 p.m., the limo driver tries buzzing the intercom again, and this time, OJ answers. OJ tells the limo driver that he overslept and had just gotten out of the shower. Doesn't look too good. Doesn't look too good.
Could have been a coyote. Los Angeles has got its fair share of coyotes running around.
A 6-foot-tall coyote that weighed 200 pounds. By the way, for it being a shadowy figure, this guy seems to have a very accurate description. I know. 6 feet, 200 pounds, but very sugary. Smells like McDonald's. At 11:45 p.m., OJ departs on an American Airlines flight to Chicago. And taking us back to the start, at 12:10 a.m., the bodies of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald L. Goldman are discovered outside her townhouse, stabbed to death. Evidence found at the crime scene included a blood-stained glove left by the suspected killer, a knitted hat, and a bloody footprint. Detectives would arrive at OJ's house at 5 a.m. and would discover some key pieces of evidence, but we'll get into that later. Meanwhile, OJ's flight lands in Chicago. According to lead prosecutor Marsha Clark, Detective Ron Phillips called OJ to inform him that his ex-wife was dead. OJ's first response? Quote, "Who killed her?" End quote.
Not good.
Not, how did she die? No, what happened? Who killed her?
That's not the go-to there.
OJ was questioned for 3 hours by the LAPD, but released. On June 17, 1994, 4 days later, OJ was charged with 2 counts of murder, but he famously did not surrender to the police and was declared a fugitive. The resulting low-speed police chase of OJ on the freeways of Southern California in his white Ford Bronco is a lasting memory for anybody familiar with the case. You remember that?
I actually don't. I think I was not too on top of the news cycle then because I was watching Power Rangers or something, but I was not.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe you were just eating cereal or some shit like that.
Yeah.
So I was probably taking it down for something. I don't know.
Is that all you did?
That's all I did was take notes
Oh, well,
in my pants.
your childhood.
OJ was in the passenger seat. The car was being driven by his friend, Al Cowlings, who would later explain he didn't stop due to the fact that OJ was apparently holding a gun to his own head in the car, and that OJ was suicidal. In fact, a suicide note by OJ was found, but we'll get to that in a bit. So right now, we're going about the speed that OJ was when the chase was happening, and we're in rush hour traffic for the most part in LA.
I thought he was going slow.
I can't say I feel exhilarated right now, nor do I feel like Vin Diesel. During the chase, they recorded a phone call between OJ and homicide detective Tom Lang. Here's some audio from them.
Nobody's gonna get hurt. I'm the only one that deserves. No, you don't deserve to get hurt. You do not deserve to get hurt. To get hurt. Don't do this. All I did was love Nicole. All I did was love her.
The chase would end at OJ's home in Brentwood. Inside the car, they found what I imagine was unintentional humor, fake adhesive, a fake mustache and goatee, OJ's passport, and a gun. Just try to picture one of the most famous people in the world trying to sneak into TSA with a glued-on mustache and thinking that it's going to work out. I can't believe he was even considering it.
It's a little juvenile.
OJ surrendered to the police at 8:51 p.m. Let's go over OJ's suicide note. Aside from thanking those who meant a lot to him in his life, OJ professed his innocence. Quote, "First, everyone understand, I have nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her, always have and always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much." End quote. And with that, let's get into the suspects. Unlike our other cases, this case has one clear top suspect, OJ Simpson. So let's break this down into 2 sections. Why OJ is the killer, and why OJ isn't the killer. Let's start with why he couldn't done it. First off, let's start with a possible motive. O.J. and Nicole Simpson had been going through a break. At around the time of the murders, Nicole and Ronald Goldman had reportedly grown increasingly close, leading some to speculate that they were perhaps more than friends. Though Goldman said that wasn't the case. That obviously is a clear motive.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been said that's I don't think that's gonna matter.
No, it's I mean, that's a meme. The guy So, in the most extreme case. Now, let's return to the timeline. If the murders did in fact occur around 10:15 when the dog barking began, as the prosecution suggested, that would give O.J. enough time to commit the murders, clean himself up, and be back at his house by 11 p.m. to greet the limo driver. Right now, we're heading over to O.J.'s Rockingham estate, which is actually 6 minutes away from Nicole's townhouse. So
it's feasible, especially if
I say we strike first. We don't have time to wait. So let's
that's, I think that supposedly is it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this is the former site of O.J.'s Rockingham estate. It was demolished in 1998, but happy to leave. Going into DNA evidence, O.J.'s blood, as well as Nicole's and Goldman's, were found on the glove left at the scene of the crime. Further damning was the fact that this glove left at the scene of the crime. Matched a glove found within O.J.'s estate behind the guest house near the area where O.J.'s friend Cato worked loud thumps at 10:40 p.m. Both gloves had blood on them that matched Nicole, Goldman, and O.J. O.J. also had a cut on his finger the day after the murders when the police interviewed him. The knitted hat found at the crime scene contained hairs that were proven to be O.J.'s by the FBI Hair and Fiber Laboratory. Also found in O.J.'s residence was Nicole's blood on a sock. Blood was also found in his driveway. The bloody shoe print found at the crime scene matched O.J.'s size, and the sole pattern matched another pair that O.J. owned at the time. O.J. had also purchased a knife, matching the type the coroner predicted the killer used. Though, the knife and the shoes were never found.
This is where a lot of people sort of draw the line, right?
When you have three separate pieces of evidence that have DNA connotations linking you to the murder,
If you're looking at the surface here, boy oh boy, that's an avalanche of
he done it right there.
yeah.
So, God, maybe we should just show a picture of that dog again. Just show, every time we get sad, show the picture of the dog.
Bring that up.
Bring that back. Good.
It's a big dog.
Good dog. Another key detail was the fact that O.J. had been a perpetrator of spousal abuse against Nicole Simpson in the past, reportedly resulting in 9 police visits to the Simpson residence responding to domestic disturbance calls. In 1989, O.J. was found guilty for spousal abuse and pled no contest to the charges. Bizarrely, O.J. himself actually wrote a book in 2006 called If I Did It, a hypothetical account of the murders. Though the book was first canceled due to public outrage, it was later published with the profits going to the Goldman family.
Oh boy. That's holy shit.
I have to say to that.
Redefining.
This guy's got some nads on him in the worst way possible. For those that are new to this case, O.J. Simpson was found not guilty in court. Despite the DNA evidence found at the crime scene, the defense team called to the attention of the jury technical mistakes made by the forensic team, which created some doubt over the evidence. Evidence was not packaged correctly, and even left in a van to overheat. This ultimately led to them suggesting that the crime scene may have been contaminated. Grasping at straws. Oh no, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a forensic artist. I know you're not. Yeah, I mean, in case you're wondering, I'm not. He is not. But from my knucklehead perspective, this looks very bad. During the trial, the defense team had O.J. try on the glove found at the crime scene, and it was too small, leading to the now famous line by his lawyer, quote, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." End quote. Dr. Seuss his way out of a murder. So, though, it's worth mentioning the prosecution team was against having O.J. try on the glove because it had been frozen and unfrozen multiple times as a preservation method, and had also been covered in blood.
I don't know how glove freezing works, frankly.
I'm not a glove freeze artist. No. Many believe that race played a factor in O.J.'s acquittal due to the events that surrounded the trial. In 1992, race riots occurred due to the LAPD's senseless and horrific beating of a black man named Rodney King, a beating for which the assaulting officers were acquitted of all charges. The defense strategically used law enforcement racism as a reason for O.J.'s charges. They showed a video of Simpson handcuffed as soon as he returned from Chicago, demonstrating the Russian judgment by the police. Perhaps one of their biggest arguments was centered around Detective Mark Furman. During the trial, the defense played for the jury a tape of audio in which Detective Furman was recorded using racial slurs over 40 times in one recorded sitting. This is noteworthy because Detective Furman was the first man to step inside O.J.'s Brentwood Rockingham estate after the murders occurred, a feat he accomplished by jumping over the wall of O.J.'s estate. This is a critical detail because according to Detective Furman's own testimony, it was during this time after he jumped the wall that he alone discovered the notorious matching bloody glove behind O.J.'s guest house. With this information, the defense was able to suggest that Detective Furman planted the glove, and perhaps all other evidence found at O.J.'s estate, effectively tainting the evidence, regardless of whether or not it was true. Christopher Darden, a deputy district attorney assigned to the O.J. case, summarized it in this quote. Quote, "It will do one thing. It will upset the black jurors. It will say, whose side are you on? The man or the brothers?" End quote. The jury was made up of 8 black people, 1 Hispanic person, 1 white person, and 2 people of mixed race. All these things considered, the jury reached the verdict of not guilty after less than 4 hours of deliberation. However, it's worth mentioning that O.J. lost the eventual civil case for the wrongful deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, with the jury awarding their families $33.5 million in punitive damages.
This episode is bumming me out, Ryan.
I know.
This is a very depressing case.
This is the worst. But if O.J. didn't kill his ex-wife and Ronald Goldman, then who did? Let's get into some alternate suspects. The first suspect is serial killer Glenn Rogers. In an investigation discovery documentary, Clay Rogers, the brother of serial killer Glenn Rogers, said that while on death row, his brother Glenn confessed to murdering Nicole Brown Simpson and Robert Goldman. Though, even if this theory is true, O.J. would still be guilty. Glenn Rogers reportedly had been hired by O.J. to steal a pair of Nicole's earrings from her condo, but was told to kill her if she got in the way. However, it's possible that Rogers was serving a 6-week jail sentence at the time of the murders, and thus lied about his involvement.
I feel like people in prison for murder and serial killers tend to just
Claim things.
Yeah, why do they do that?
Sometimes people will claim things in an effort to make themselves seem more accomplished in that field. I
Well,
suppose.
none of us are impressed.
No,
Serial killers.
Yeah, that's gonna really let it sink in. They're gonna see this video and be like, he's right. Pack it up. You know what? What we doing?
Stop it.
We're really hitting at their heart right now.
Stop it.
Keep going. We make a difference.
Stop serial killing.
The last suspect is Jason Simpson, O.J.'s son, and is the sole theory of famed private investigator Bill Deere, who is one of the few private investigators to be inducted into the Police Hall of Fame. Though, it's worth mentioning that many have discredited Deere's case as almost entirely circumstantial. Nonetheless, Deere presents his theory in a book, and the highlights are as follows. At the time of Nicole and Goldman's murders, Jason was on probation after having attacked his former boss with a knife. According to Deere, Jason had also attacked a former girlfriend named Jennifer Green. Deere also spoke to another former girlfriend of Jason's named Dee Dee, who claimed Jason almost broke her back after throwing her into a bathtub, and perhaps even more suspiciously, cut off her hair with a knife, giving Jason 2 reported assaults involving a knife. Deere also reportedly obtained medical records of Jason's, illegally some might add, by dressing up and impersonating a doctor at Cedars-Sinai Hospital for 2 weeks, where Jason had been a patient.
I don't like
I mean,
this guy.
he tricked people in a hospital for 2 weeks.
People were murdered. This guy's playing dress up?
I know, but I'm just saying.
Whoa, what if I do this? Whoa.
Well, he was doing it because he was
I'll put
chasing.
on a funny wig.
In his mind, he was chasing justice. I mean, apparently the Police Hall of Fame thought so. So,
Is that a real thing?
yes, it is.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's just him making that up in a different costume, being like, yes, we're a real organization.
He cuts the videos and it's like,
Yes, I know, I'm the president. Yeah, he looks like that other guy who's got a mustache.
According to Deere, Jason had been diagnosed with intermittent rage disorder. And around the time of the murders, Jason stopped taking the prescribed antipsychotic drugs. This was also during the time when Jason reportedly told doctors he was, quote, going to rage. Jason's alibi was that he was working at a restaurant that night. Deere feels this is a flimsy alibi due to the fact that his time card is reportedly handwritten, which could suggest it was forged after the murders. This reportedly handwritten time card looks even more suspicious when you consider the fact that the electronic time clock at the restaurant was fully functional that day. Deere also reportedly has pictures of Jason wearing a knitted hat that bears resemblance to the one found at the scene of the crime. Pictures that only exist before the murders and not after. To cap this off, Deere suggests that O.J. was only present at the scene of the crime to protect his son, and that this would explain his bizarre behavior after the murders, such as the infamous Bronco chase. But, as mentioned before, many have discredited Deere's case as almost entirely circumstantial. Unrelated to this case, on September 16, 2007, O.J. was connected to a robbery in Las Vegas, Nevada. In the 2008 trial that followed, O.J. was found guilty for 12 counts, including armed robbery and kidnapping, and was sentenced to 33 years in prison. According to CNN, the overall percentage of Americans who believe O.J. did murder Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman has increased from 66% in 1994 to 83% in 2014.
Certainly, there are a lot of implications.
Yeah,
Very nuanced.
I feel dirty. I feel like I need to take a shower, and then a bath, and then another shower. Yeah. Need a drink.
Well, thanks, Ryan. This has been a blast.
Yeah. I just got. Okay. Ouch. Perhaps one day we will have a definite answer for who was responsible for the tragic murders of Nicole Simpson and Ronald Goldman. But for now, the case officially remains
Okay, my last time I said, oh, we give love to light dressed. And no person, I'm sorry.
Watch out!
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we discussed the famous case of D.B. Cooper, a case that the FBI is referred to as one of the great unsolved mysteries in FBI history. It's also considered one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in U.S. history.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this one a little bit, just a little bit.
Oh, you haven't heard it like I'm about to tell it. Let's strap in. Let's strap in, baby. Let's get into it. On Wednesday, November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, a man went by the name Dan Cooper bought a $20 one-way ticket on Northwest Orient Airlines with cash for flight number 305 from Portland, Oregon to Seattle. Cooper was described as being in his mid-40s and wearing a business suit, green-type overcoat, brown shoes, a white shirt, and black tie. He carried a dark briefcase and a 4-inch by 12-inch by 14-inch paper bag. Before the plane took off, Cooper, seated in seat 18C, ordered a bourbon and soda.
He seems like a cool dude.
I don't think he even ordered the bourbon and soda to calm his nerves. I think he was telling us like he's a bad soda.
I'm D.B. Cooper. I'm a mystery. Give me a bourbon.
After the plane had taken off, a little after 3 p.m., Cooper handed the stewardess a note. At first, she just put it in her pocket without looking at it. But then Cooper said, quote, "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." End quote.
And what's so funny about that? He has a bomb. I think it's funny that he passed her a note to be discreet about it. Like, just had a down, and then she was just like, thanks! Walked away, and he was like, hey, you might want to read that, because I've got a bomb. Oh, goddamn it. Yeah, I got a bomb, everybody.
Cooper told her the bomb was in his briefcase and asked her to sit next to him. He opened his briefcase to show red-colored sticks surrounded by an array of wires. After that, Cooper asked the stewardess to write down what he was saying and take it to the captain. Quote, "I want $200,000 by 5 p.m. in cash. Put in a knapsack. I want 2 back parachutes and 2 front parachutes. When we land, I want a fuel truck ready to refuel. No funny stuff, or I'll do the job."
No funny stuff!
I also like how he says, do the job.
I'll do the job.
Like that's his threat, which actually to
That's
me,
badass.
he's not a dime store criminal, let's just say that.
He's...
I'm on board with the Coop train.
Me too. I'm a fan of this guy.
You a good Coop head?
I'm a Coop head.
One odd detail was that Cooper asked for $200,000 to be exclusively in $20 bills. The flight landed in Seattle, and Cooper exchanged the 36 passengers on the plane for the money and the parachutes he had requested. Cooper kept some crew members on the plane and had the plane take off for Mexico City, requesting that the plane remain below 10,000 feet. During the second half of the flight, Cooper put on a pair of dark wraparound sunglasses with dark rims that would later become part of the sketch that would become famous for anybody familiar with the case.
Yeah, I'm just imagining like a camera just pushing in on him as he's like...
If we were in today's age, this guy would definitely have headphones in, playing Spotify playlists of epic soundtracks.
He'd have one of those shitty hoverboards.
Not an actual hoverboard, but
Yeah, he'd be like, well, I'll do the job. Maybe take out the wheels, put it down, start moving up and down the aisle. Knapsack. Well, I'll do the job.
A little after 8 p.m., the plane was somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Nevada. Cooper jumped out the rear doors of the Boeing 727 with 2 of the parachutes and the money, never to be seen again. One thing worth noting is that Cooper took off his black JCPenney clip-on tie before jumping, a piece of evidence that the FBI was able to procure a DNA sample from.
You think James Bond ever wore a clip-on bow tie?
yeah, I guess that one. That does kind of.
It's kind of takes the wind out
Well,
of my
maybe
sails.
if he like knew he had to do it quick, then that was
Still,
like
but
an efficiency thing.
If he was like, I'm gonna put my sunglasses on, it'll look cool. If he was like,
With the DNA sample from the tie, let's jump into the investigation launched to identify the man who called himself Dan Cooper. The case was called Norjack, standing for Northwest Hijacking. It would last decades. The plane was intensely searched for evidence. Desperate to find Cooper's identity, there was extra interest in $20 bills. Because the FBI was serial numbers of the bills stolen by Cooper. Remarkably, in 1980, 3 years after Cooper's escape, a young boy found a rotting package filled with $20 bills that matched the ransom money serial numbers. There was $5,800 in all. The boy found the bills on a beach at Tina Bar while making a campfire with his father. People theorized that when Cooper jumped out, the money possibly fell into the Washougal River before eventually making its way to Tina Bar. That's basically all they theorized.
just imagine him just jumping out and immediately just losing grip of all the bags. Just a man plummeting to earth with a bunch of money flying around him. Like, ah!
Though, this discovery would ultimately lead to nothing, as the FBI scoured the surrounding beaches, finding nothing else. In the year that followed the hijacking, several letters were sent to the FBI. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, and Seattle Times, either confessing to the crime, eulogizing a recently deceased D.B. Cooper, or claiming to be his brother. In fact, in November 1972, 2 men, Donald Sylvester Murphy and William John Lewis, were taken into federal custody on charges of extortion for impersonating Cooper and selling his tell-all story to a tabloid.
It seems like a bad idea to make your get-rich-quick scheme to be to impersonate a criminal.
Yeah,
That wouldn't be like, aha, hey, it's me, the Zodiac Killer. I'll tell you a story. What? Oh.
Leads were tracked all over the country, and more than 800 suspects were considered over the first 5 years of the investigation. All but 24 suspects were eliminated from consideration. One peculiar fact is that the initials DB have no actual relevance to the case, and the FBI isn't sure where they came from. It was reportedly a mistake from a wire service that caused him to be called DB Cooper instead of Dan Cooper, which is how he presented himself when buying the plane ticket.
DB sounds cooler.
It does.
Dan just sounds like your neighbor who's like asking to borrow a lawnmower.
The physical description of Cooper is thought to be very accurate. 2 flight attendants spent hours with him on the plane and were interviewed separately the night the hijacking occurred. They gave nearly identical descriptions of Cooper, saying that he was 5'10" to 6 feet, 170 to 180 pounds, in his mid-40s, and brown eyes. People who interacted with him on the ground gave similar descriptions. His voice was described as low, no particular accent, but spoke with an intelligent vocabulary.
I would like some bourbon and some money or I will do the job.
Sounds like a terrifying version of Scary.
It's me, Dan.
The charge against Cooper was originally air piracy, but that had a 5-year statute of limitations, and as time went on, with no suspects being found guilty, a grand jury later indicted Cooper for violating the Hobbs Act. The Hobbs Act is a federal statute designed to prevent extortion. and has no statute of limitations, meaning if Cooper was found tomorrow, he could be charged even though the FBI investigation has since been called off. Before we jump into suspects, I'd like to point out that the pilot told officials that he himself chose the route the plane took, not Cooper. Cooper only requested his end destination of Mexico City, a decision that is a bit puzzling when you consider the fact that Cooper knew he intended to jump out of a plane. This seemingly eliminates the possibility of Cooper having an accomplice, as there was no coordination about the route from Cooper, and therefore no coordinated drop point.
This is what always interested me about this case. It's because it seems so meticulously planned up until he jumps.
Maybe he's one of those people that goes out to do things I'm kind of like this too, where I'll go out and I'm like, I'll figure it out in the moment.
Or he was confident and he nailed it.
With that, let's jump into the suspects. The first suspect is Richard Floyd McCoy, who is the favorite suspect of former FBI agent Russell Kalam and former federal probation officer Bernie Rhodes. The two men even wrote a book about the case. In April 1972, 5 months after Cooper's escape, the FBI arrested Richard Floyd McCoy for hijacking an airplane. When examined, the McCoy heist is definitely similar to the Cooper heist. Like Cooper, McCoy hijacked a plane and parachuted off of it. McCoy jumped out the back rear staircase of a Boeing 727, the same plane Cooper jumped out of, using the same method. Also like Cooper, McCoy requested more parachutes and was calm during the heist. Reportedly, both of the men passed notes to the flight attendants claiming a bomb was on board, a detail that becomes more compelling when you learn that both Cooper and McCoy's notes reportedly contained the phrase, "no funny stuff." Another suspicious coincidence is the fact that both crimes reportedly occurred while Brigham Young University, where McCoy was a student, was on break.
He was a student?
In this theory, yes.
I was thinking about it in a cold, hard criminal way. I was thinking spring break. That sounds kind of fun.
Do you think that's what he yelled when he jumped out the plane? Spring break! Just falls out to his death.
Spring break!
Perhaps the most riveting detail is that according to Kalam and Rhodes, members of McCoy's family identified an object left on the plane by Cooper, an object that was never publicly identified. Some parts of the internet seem to believe that this object was a Brigham Young University medallion with McCoy's initials on it, but this seems to stem from the Wikipedia page on the case, which makes this most likely complete horseshit. I mean, the thing is, if that's the case closed.
Yeah,
Brigham Young University medallion with his initials on it. I mean,
but it's not definitive. It's not.
they just said unidentified object, which is probably like a stick of gum or some stupid
Right.
shit like
Well,
that.
he chewed.
He chewed Wrigley's.
Yeah.
He chewed Wrigley's.
Well, he was a big juicy fruit.
Regardless if McCoy is Cooper or not, the FBI eventually ruled out McCoy as a suspect for the Cooper case, mainly because he didn't match the descriptions of Cooper given by the flight attendants, though Kalam and Rhodes listed the two men as looking similar. Additionally, according to FBI archives, McCoy was home with his family for Thanksgiving dinner in Utah the day after the hijacking. Unlike Cooper, McCoy was actually caught after his heist and sentenced to 45 years in prison. McCoy would actually escape from prison in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and later die in a gunfight with FBI agents in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I just love how that story has so many
I know.
He's out.
It's like,
He's out. Shot to death. That was a roller coaster of emotions right there. The second suspect is Dwayne Weber, who claimed to be D.B. Cooper on his deathbed. His wife, Jo, claims that in the hour of his death, Dwayne pulled her close and said, quote, "I have a secret to tell you. I'm Dan Cooper."
drink. And I just imagine
Close. I have a secret to tell you. I'm the factor of the sky.
I bet she did not see that one coming.
She's probably going to say, you cheated. Yeah, exactly. You cheated on me. I'm a man of myth. This revelation led to Joe revisiting what should have been clear clues. According to Joe, Dwayne had nightmares where he'd sleep talk about, quote, leaving fingerprints on a plane. He also had a knee helmet that he claimed he got jumping out of a plane. Dwayne's handwriting was reportedly found in the margins of a library book on D.B. Cooper. Joe also claims Dwayne took her to the place where the money was eventually found on Tina Bar Beach. That's interesting. If that's true, that is interesting.
Wait, what did you write in the margins? This was me.
Cool guy, nice guy in history, nice sunglasses. Wow, bourbon's great. And finally, Joe claims that Dwayne had an old Northwest airline ticket for no apparent reason. 29 years after he left the case, he Here is a quote from former lead FBI agent Ralph Himmelsbach on Dwayne Weber. Quote, "He does fit the physical description. He does have the criminal background that I have always felt was associated with the case." End quote. Himmelsbach also believed that Joe Weber's story may have credibility, but ultimately did not believe it was him.
She may be telling the truth. Sounds pretty credible. I don't believe
But she's probably lying. The third and final suspect is Kenneth Christensen, the favorite suspect of the author Jeffrey Gray. The theory began when Lyle Christensen, the brother of Kenneth Christensen, saw an episode of Unsolved Mysteries and became convinced that his brother was D.B. Cooper. Lyle also cites a deathbed confession from his now late brother Kenneth. Kenneth reportedly said, quote, "There is something you should know, but I cannot tell you." End quote.
And then he died?
Talk about a guy who appreciates a cliffhanger.
Yeah, that's great.
I could, you know what? Touche, Kenneth. Kenneth was a flight purser for Northwest Orient Airlines, the same airline that Cooper hijacked, which would support online suspicion that it was an inside job. Kenneth also loved bourbon and bought a house shortly after the crime, though he was reportedly unassuming. Perhaps the most enthralling part of Gray's theory is the fact that when he showed a picture of Kenneth to a flight attendant who interacted with Cooper, she agreed that of all the suspects she had seen, Kenneth was the closest. Though, she also said, quote, "I can't say yay," end quote. Bizarrely, the FBI debunked Kenneth on the basis that he didn't match the description. So once again, the FBI coming in hot with some weird contradiction. I'm not gonna, you're cool FBI. I'm just saying.
You don't want to make enemies of the deep state.
I don't, especially now with, never mind. Another reason the FBI discredits Kenneth as a suspect is because Kenneth was a paratrooper just after World War II, a detail that is damning according to the FBI, who believes that Cooper was not a skilled jumper.
Maybe he was masquerading as an unskilled jumper.
That's an interesting suspicion, and perhaps, well, let's get into the next section.
The greatest way to fool someone is to act to fool yourself.
Is that
Julius Caesar.
No.
That's not.
No, I didn't think so.
I thought you'd fall into that.
No. Which brings us to our next suspect, or rather theory, from Special Agent Larry Carr, that D.B. Cooper did not survive the fall. Agent Carr took over the D.B. Cooper case in 2007. Here's a quote from him on the matter. Quote, "We originally thought Cooper was an experienced jumper, perhaps even a paratrooper. We concluded after a few years this was simply not true." End quote. Here's some details that support that narrative. Cooper jumped carrying 2 parachutes. However, only one of them was a functioning chute. The other was a training chute that was sewn shut. Furthermore, the chute that was functional was a military chute that was not steerable. It's kind of starting to sound like an idiot. The whole time he's like, "Yeah, bourbon soda. Here's your note. I'm a cool guy. Sunglasses." Jumps out the plane. Splat.
It's not a splat. I think the pine tree just... just like... No.
Kill me.
Little squirrel stuff.
Here's some more details from Agent Carr. Quote, "No experienced parachutist would have jumped in the pitch black night, in the rain, with a 200-mile-an-hour wind in his face, wearing loafers and a trench coat." End quote. Other reasons he possibly died in the fall include him jumping into a wooded area at night, and there was no visibility of the ground at the time that he jumped, as there was a cloud cover at 5,000 feet.
Oh, this guy's a dumb.
He's a dum-dum. He's a big dum-dum. Big dum-dum floating in the sky with a stupid trench coat blowing in the wind.
Loafers.
Obviously, this theory loses a bit of credence due to the fact that his body or chute were never found. The last theory we'll discuss comes from a group of amateur scientists that refer to themselves as citizen sleuths.
That's frankly kind of what you are.
Yeah, and that's why I like this theory.
Okay. Well, let's see what your friends have to say.
I got you guys. He's gonna be floored. Citizen sleuths employ the use of an electron microscope to discover north of 100,000 particles on D.B. Cooper's tie. Among these particles, they discovered cerium, strontium sulfide, and pure titanium. According to lead citizen sleuths researcher Tom Kay, quote, "These are what they call rare earth elements. They're used in very narrow fields for very specific things," end quote. Kay stated that although these elements were rare during 1971, one place they were being utilized was at Boeing, where they were developing an advanced supersonic transport plane. Kay and the Citizen Sleuths posit that Cooper may have been a Boeing employee, explaining the rare materials found on his tie. Quote, the tie went with him into these manufacturing environments for sure. So he was not one of the people running these manufacturing machines. He was either an engineer or a manager in one of the plants. End quote.
I feel like if you got a job at Boeing, just
Why
lay
am
in there.
I? Does he
Got a nice 401k, retire. Why you gotta go jumping out of planes?
Because that's how DP does it, baby. He likes bourbon, he likes adventure, he likes notes.
Flying through the sky, screaming with a paraloafer.
Kay believes the key to identifying Cooper rests within the memory of perhaps one person in the Pacific Northwest who was involved in the aerospace industry at the time. If that person is you, all information can be relayed to the Citizen Sleuths via the contact tab on their website, citizensleuths.com. The FBI called their search for D.B. Cooper one of the longest and most exhaustive investigations in its history. As of 2011, the FBI case file measured 40 feet long and covered more than 1,000 suspects. So what we presented here is only the tip of the iceberg. The case was open for 45 years before the FBI finally closed it in 2016, though they are still willing to listen to possible leads. What do you think happened?
I'm gonna go Occam's razor on this one, just assume that he rocketed into the ground. A little juxtaposition of him being on the plane, being like, oh, that's perfect. And then 2 hours later,
After all these years, people are still transfixed on the identity of the cunning crook known as D.B. Cooper. But for now, and perhaps forever, the case of D.B. Cooper remain unsolved. What if the trench coat was like Batman, or was like a flight-activated suit that allows him to fly around like a flying squirrel?
in my mind, though, I don't imagine him being like, oh, here comes the tree line. I imagine him being like, oh, I can't see through the clouds. Oh, now I can. It's just like a Wile E. Coyote.
No smoke.
Yeah.
Oh, hey there, didn't see you walk in. That does it for this season of BuzzFeed Unsolved, but we'll be back with a new season soon. I promise. Now I'm gonna get back to this case.
That's bullshit.
Look out for a brand new season of BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural coming soon.
Is the client's project on budget? We're probably over, but by how much? I'll take tomorrow to figure it out before he asks.
Is the project on budget? No need to reply until the morning.
After teamwork.com, tracking profitability doesn't keep me up at night. We get a real-time view of our financial performance for each project, so we can track against our budget and make money. Now I'm back to just your normal run-of-the-mill 2 a.m. existential dread. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Next Flood, ranked as the most underrated ballpark by Golf Spot. Back on all major U.S. tours and played by Lexi Thompson, Ben Griffin, Fred Funk, Sean Foley, and thousands of everyday golfers who have made the switch to the all-new Max Fly Tour Series.
It says danger. I wouldn't go in.
Holy shit.
Turn the light off!
Oh my god. This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we explore Bobby Mackey's Music World, which is seemingly a normal Kentucky bar, but many believe it's actually a portal to hell. As many of you know, or as many of you who watch this show know, I hate demons, and I will only do one per season. So this is my sacrifice for this season.
I didn't know that was your rule.
It's my word.
Thanks for breaking it.
Would it have killed them to make this any closer to the city? Does it have to be on the side of the weird, creepy road?
We'd all like to live in a big fancy city.
You know what I meant. And the worst part is, I don't even have my holy water. I went to 8 churches today to try and get some holy water, and I could not get one bit of holy water. So now I'm going into a demon hole with no holy water. Bobby Mackey's, the most haunted nightclub in America. They're certainly not hiding from it anymore. At least the sign's in nice, fun font.
It's like Cheers with demons.
I'll open the door for you. You walk in first. How about that?
We do this every time, and you throw it down like it's a challenge. But, okay.
God, creak. cannot be held liable for any actions of any ghosts/spirits on these premises. Obviously, enough weird stuff has happened here to necessitate a sign like that. You're not a little alarmed? Look at all these cool little newspapers. Well, we're in. Let's just sit down and then I'll tell you the history of this place. Okay. Aside from housing a supposed portal to hell, Bobby Mackey's also has plenty of rich history that lends itself to spiritual hauntings.
I was locking up after a tour, which happened to be pretty quiet that whole evening, and just all of a sudden I started hearing what sounded like all of the windows and doors were just shaking violently, and you could actually feel them, shaking through, the walls, the floors were shaking. It was pretty creepy, and so I just stuck my head out the door, and no one was there.
Originally, Bobby Mackey's Music World was believed to be built as a slaughterhouse and meatpacking plant in the 1850s. The building would go through many incarnations, including a hotel in the 1920s, a country club in the 1930s, and a club and casino called the Latin Quarter throughout the 1930s and the 1950s. The club was actually run by a Cleveland gang syndicate and was reportedly heavily involved in the mob. It's unclear how many undocumented deaths and crimes may have occurred during these mob times. The room that is now the men's bathroom used to be an office in the casino that may have had darker implications. This used to be an office back in the day. Apparently, there was a trap door in here that leads directly to the portal to hell downstairs.
Yikes.
And,